Okay, let's see if that's back on. Yes, it is. So we're going to go ahead and reconvene now, and we'll go to item 2. And before we do, I'd like to recognize that our controller is present. Mr. Keddy, do you have an announcement to
I
make?
do. Thank you. Controller Cone is appearing remotely. I have a statement and a question when a board member appears remotely. If a member of the board attends the meeting by teleconference from a remote location, the member shall disclose whether any other individuals 18 years of age or older are present in the room at the remote location with the member and the general nature of the member's relationship with any such individual. Controller Cone, is there anyone 18 years of age or older present in the room at your remote location?
No, Mrs. Cicchetti, it's just me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And we'll go on now to item 2. Contribution disclosure forms are not required pursuant to Government Code Section 15626, and this will be presented by Mr. McCool.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable members of the board. My name is Jack McCool, Chief of the State Assessed Properties Division. Before you today is a petition for reassessment of unitary property. In this matter, SAPD staff and representatives from the petitioner were able to work collaboratively to resolve the issues raised in the petition. The petitioner was cooperative during the process and provided staff with additional information and data that was requested. As a result, SAPD staff and the petitioner are in agreement on the recommendation before you, and I ask for your adoption. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, the recommended motion is to approve the State Assessed Properties Division's recommendation to reassess the value of the Phillips 66 pipeline. And we could go ahead and start out with a motion from Mr. Vasquez. And Mr. Schaefer, would you like to second that one?
I have a question.
Oh, we'll just take a second and then we'll go to the questions and comments if that's acceptable.
I have no
Sure.
questions.
Did you wish to second the motion? Did you want to second the motion?
Yes, I would second the motion.
Okay, Mr. Schaefer seconds. Okay, questions. We'll go first to our controller.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Mrs. Cicchetti, I love that scarf that you're wearing, by the way. It's a beautiful color. So my question, just to be clear, in order for the Phillips pipeline to be abandoned, the state fire marshal must make an abandonment assessment first. Is that right, Mr. McCool?
I know generally speaking for a, no?
see
Hi,
Mr.
Richard
Moon
Moon,
approaching.
Chief Counsel. I hate to throw a wet blanket on the party here. However, I would advise that we not get into a discussion on the specifics on this particular taxpayer in this matter, because it is a non-appearance consent. It still has confidentiality and potentially ex parte issues as well.
Okay, well, first, okay, Mr. Moon, it's wonderful to see you in this role. Congratulations. I'm really
Thank you very much.
excited for you and for the entire BOE team. And looks like you're stepping into the role fantastically, on top of it, wet blanket and
Thank you.
all. Not a problem. I certainly know the rules. I know that I was in a gray area, but I guess but the crux of my question, and I don't know if this is getting too into the specifics, but I'm under the impression that that the fire marshal must make an abandonment assessment, and then at that point, that's when, or at what point would this BOE body consider the next unitary value to be a $0?
Yep. So I think Mr. McCool can answer that generally as to the fire marshal and how we would approach it.
Thank you.
Yes, so to your question, generally speaking, there is a process that does involve the state fire marshal for an official abandonment of a pipeline system. Whether or not the system is abandoned doesn't necessarily impact our valuation. So we might get into a situation where if the fire marshal were to approve an abandonment of a pipeline, It may transfer to local assessment and no longer be state assessed, but I would still have value of some sort. So hopefully
Okay.
that answers your question.
Thank you. I appreciate that general answer to my general question. I do have a second part to my question. As the state of California, as we begin to move towards a more green economy and more eco-friendly economy, do you anticipate more oil pipelines closing? And how does this, if at all, affect the state assessed role?
To the first part of your question, we're not aware of any circumstances in which we're expecting additional pipelines to cease operations. That's obviously, dependent on specific and unique business circumstances for each individual assessee. But we are not aware of any trend that would suggest we would see additional pipelines shuttering, to the first part of your
Okay.
question. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Yeah, so then the second part of the question is, do you anticipate more pipelines closing down? And if so, how would this affect the state assessed role?
Yeah, so this particular change for this one assessee would lower the roll by the amount in question, but it is not a materially significant impact on our overall state assessed roll.
For this particular case, but what about in the future? Look into your crystal ball and
Sure.
what can you predict?
It's difficult to predict, obviously, in the long term.
Yeah.
As we reviewed in May when we did the unitary value setting, there was we've seen I think we saw a small decrease overall in our pipeline industry. It was essentially flat from the prior year. So we haven't seen a lot of movement in the total unitary value of the pipeline industry as a group. We did see the throughputs, or the amount of product going through the pipeline. We actually saw an increase overall as an industry this year, and that was offset by higher operating costs. So generally speaking, the pipelines are still producing either the same or maybe even more as an industry, but the costs of doing business in the last couple of years, using the last couple of years as our example, the operating costs have also been increasing. So
Got it.
in the short term, I'd expect those trends to continue. In the longer term, it's difficult for us to predict with the information that we receive.
Understood. Thank you. I have no other questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions at this point in time? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to our public comment, and I haven't received any comment cards from the auditorium. So we'll go to our AT&T moderator. Moderator, if you would please let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this item.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to make a public comment, please press 1 then 0 on your telephone keypad. And there are no comments in queue.
Thank you so much. So members, is there any further discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none. We have a motion from Mr. Vasquez, seconded by Mr. Schaefer, to approve the State Assessed Properties Division's recommendation to reassess the value of the Phillips 66 pipeline. Mr. McCool, did you wish to make any closing statement?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cicchetti, if you would please call the roll.
Chair Lieber,
Aye.
Mr. Gaines is absent. Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Member Schaefer,
Aye.
Controller Cohen.
Aye.
Okay, members, the motion passes, and thank you so much to our controller. Thank you. We'll go on to item 3, our consent agenda, adoption of the July 23rd, 2024 board meeting minutes. Is there anyone who'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Vasquez. Would anyone like to second the approval of the minutes?
Second, please.
Thank you. Mr. Emron seconds. And we do not have comment cards on this item, so we'll go to our AT&T moderator. Moderator, if you would please let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding the consent agenda.
And if you'd like to make a public comment, please press 1, then 0. And there are no comments in queue.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this one? Seeing none, we'll go ahead to Mr. Keddy. And the motion is by Mr. Vasquez, seconded by Mr. Emron to approve the minutes of July 23rd, 2024. If you would please call the roll.
Chair Lieber,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gaines is absent. Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Member Schaefer,
Aye.
Deputy Controller Emron.
Aye.
Okay, members, that passes. And we'll go to board member matters, item 4, board meeting date change proposal. And this will be presented by Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like to request that our October meeting, if at all possible, could be moved from our current meeting time, which is on the 3rd week, to now the 4th week, because I will actually have to take care of some minor health issues, if that's a possibility.
Okay. I guess I'll start out the questions. Are we okay with getting the auditorium on that date of the 29th?
Yes, for October 29th, yes.
Okay, great. Any other questions at all? Okay. Would anyone, well, I'll let Mr. Vasquez go ahead and make the motion.
So I'd like to move that we move our October board meeting change from October 2023, 2024 to October 29th. And I'll leave it as one, because I'm not sure if you need a second day, or do I need to add a second day to that, Ms. Stowers? Flip.
Executive Director. Currently, we have the board meeting set for 2 days, October 22nd and October 23rd, 2024. It's my understanding the request is to move it to the following week. We have confirmed that the facility is available for October 29th only, so we will only be having a one-day meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So the 29th,
The 29th. And
2024.
so we're looking for a second on it. Mr. Emron?
Second, please, and then I have a question, if it's okay.
Okay, and we'll take questions. Mr. Emron?
So, Madam Chair, this was originally a 2-day meeting, and I know that that we were supposed to have our October informational hearing too. So we're going to compress this into 1 day now?
That would be the plan, is, I believe it's to start out the day with a brief hearing and then continue with the regular business following that. Is that correct, Ms. Stowers?
Begin. The plan is to start the meeting at 10 a.m. promptly, do our roll call, have brief opening remarks, then start the informational hearing. We don't know if we're going to have any property tax matters for the agenda, but if we do, I will work it into that day. It will either go first thing in the morning or in the evening, depending on the informational hearing speakers in their schedule. I'll be speaking with Vice Chair Gaines after this meeting to confirm what time he's asking for his speakers to come.
So are we including staff reports as well in the October meeting?
I doubt it. I don't think we can do it all in that time frame from 10 to 5. Because the board had confirmed that this informational hearing would take place, and can't do it all.
So Mr. Vasquez for questions.
Yeah, I'm open if, I don't know how the members feel, my colleagues here, but I don't mind starting it early if we need to start at 9, if that's convenient for everybody.
Up to the chair, of course. Do think staff reports are important because we do meet once a month. I just want to put that out there too.
Okay. It's up to the person now who drives the furthest distance. That's a dangerous place to be. Let's leave it that we'll talk with Mr. Gaines about what he's committed to his speakers, because right now it would be scheduled for 10 a.m. And then we can, I believe, change it to 9 a.m. outside of the meeting. But what we're talking about with this action is the date, not the time, if I'm correct. And so we could make that adjustment, but we don't want to upset the apple cart of all the speakers. And so, Ms. Stowers, if I'm understanding you correctly too, it's going to be essential that members keep their opening comments down to 1 minute or less to be able to accommodate everything in one day. And so as we're thinking about what we want to get done in that meeting, we can kind of plan around that. Okay, so I don't believe, Mr. Schaefer, yes.
I would like when we have a brief item like this in the future that we expand a little bit into the reasons for con. Here, all I can see is discussion, and then I look for item 4 backup, and there is none. And it's a little hard with the acoustics to hear what you're talking about, so I'm sort of playing blind man's bluff. I can be here by 9:30, flying up from San Diego, maybe not 9 o'clock, so the worst that would happen is I'd miss out on the opening remarks, but you can count on me being there. I wouldn't miss it.
Thank you so much. We rely on you. So what we're going to do is kind of just switch the date now, one-day meeting for the 29th, if approved by the board, and just with the proviso that we're going to keep it very crisp then, and we'll talk with Mr. Gaines about what he's committed to his speakers in terms of the start time. So great. We don't have comment cards from the auditorium, and we can go to the AT&T moderator and ask moderator, is there anyone who would like to comment on item 4?
If you'd like to make a comment, please press 1, then 0. And there are no comments in queue.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And so we've got a motion from Mr. Vasquez with Mr. Emron seconding that the October date be moved to October 29th, 2024. Mr. Keddy, if you would please call the roll.
Chair Lieber,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gaines is absent. Member Vasquez,
Aye?
Member Schaefer,
Aye?
Deputy Controller Emron.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vasquez. We'll go on now to item 5, key issues, takeaways, and recommendations from the 2024 Northern California County Assessors Association Conference. And this is also presented by Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, the recent Northern California Assessors Conference was excellent, very informative, and important to our understanding of the current challenges assessors are facing. I think most of us were able to attend, and it was very worthwhile. A couple of issues were raised, one of which, at least from my perspective, is worthy of discussion and possibly at some point, some type of future action. And that's number 1, a suggestion and request for more guidance from board, especially advice that is decisive and clear. Several assessors mentioned that their staff rely on the BOE guidance, LTAs, et cetera, but they face hurdles when we haven't issued anything or what we have issued doesn't address the real problems they're encountering. And in my conversation with our executive director, shortly after I heard that, I understand that's in the works. And I think part of it was, as she was going through some reorganization, I think we'll see a little bit more of that, hopefully with the new LTAs. And now that we have Mr. Moon at the head, we're expecting big and some big improvements here. And looking forward to his input now as we move forward, specifically on the LTAs. And with that, there was one other example of when we're talking, and we discussed it a little bit earlier today, the whole electronic signatures, which has been a bit of a challenge. And now with the passage of AB 1879 by Assemblymember Gibson, the board has the opportunity and duty to determine to approve this matter and hopefully to help facilitate that moving forward. Let me see what else. I think there was one. The other issue that came up was that, well, I kind of touched on it. It was basically, it seemed to keep resurfacing, not only with the current leadership from the assessors, but then the incoming new leadership. It all seemed to center around having a little bit better guidance, especially in the legal areas with LTAs moving forward. So let me leave it with that. And then I know there was others that attended, so I don't know if there's anything else people wanted to share, but that was my conversations pretty much with the assessors when I was there.
Thank you. I did have the opportunity to attend, and I think one of the things that really stuck with me is the great respect that's out there for Mr. David Young and Ms. Glenna Schultz. When they walked through, the waters parted, and terms were thrown around like rock star, unbelievable, encyclopedic, things like that. And they really felt like, too, with Ms. Thompson and all the work that's done in the Taxpayer Rights Advocate's Office, it was really heartening to hear, and very good to have those conversations with the assessors. One of the panels that I was particularly interested in was some of the issues around ADUs and how that's, such an emerging area, and some of the actions that are going to be forthcoming in terms of lot splits and those types of things. So it was a very educational conference to be at. Mr. Schaefer.
I'm always impressed when somebody from another part of the state visits the other part of the state, because we're a statewide organization. I've been very pleased that Mr. Imran and Malia have both been down around San Diego, and that you're going to visit when you can. And I just want to commend Member Vasquez for spending some time with the Northern California properties and Northern California assessors, because this makes each of us much better as statewide officials.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Imran, did you have anything?
Yes, just very commemorating comments. I also got to attend up in beautiful Lake Tahoe. I got very, very happy to see many of my colleagues also in attendance. It shows the historic and deep relationships the Board of Equalization and the CAA have. They're so happy to have us there. Member Gaines, Vice Chair Gaines spoke very, very highly at the beginning of the conference as well, representing us all and us being a part of it, participating. And I think it kind of shows the role that we do play as an organization that's only growing, only expanding, and only getting stronger as time goes along. So I just want to also shout out to all the staff, too, that made it out to Lake Tahoe. It's not an easy trip, very, very deep in the mountains, but I ended up in Nevada, so I came right back into California when I was out of my jurisdiction. But it was very, very nice. I'm very, very happy to do that. I'm looking forward to, I think it's in San Luis Obispo in October as well, so I'll be in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think a lot for us to unpack there over the next couple months, and also get input from Ms. Nguyen, who was here earlier, And I know that Ms. Stowers will be at the next one in Pismo Beach. And so it's a very fruitful partnership that we have with the assessors, and great to see the assessors. And again, so much esteem for the agency and for the staff. And it's really a job well done. So thank you to staff.
Madam Chair, just one
Yes.
last comment. I was thinking, as you move forward, when we do that joint meeting with the assessors coming up, I think it's in a month or two, when we do have it here,
Next month.
we might want to add some of these issues, specifically the two that they brought up on the LTAs, and the other one, I think, on the electronic signatures. If we might want to include that on our agenda when we do meet with them, because it sounds like they want to have that discussion with us as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea, and I should have mentioned that, well, I don't want to preempt our executive officer's report, so I won't go there. But yes, that's a very good point, so thank you for that. And we don't have any public comments in the auditorium, at least who have filled out a comment card. So we'll go to our AT&T moderator. Moderator, is there anyone on the line who would like to comment on item 5?
And if you'd like to make a comment, please press 1, then 0. And there are no comments in queue.
Thank you. So we'll go on now, members, to item 6, our executive director's report. Ms. Stowers.
Good afternoon. Yvette Stowers, Executive Director for the State Board of Equalization. For today's report, I will introduce our new Chief Counsel. I will highlight recent media coverage on disaster relief and provide a brief overview on the implementation of the Budget Act as it relates to BOE. Up first, members, it is my great pleasure to announce the appointment of Mr. Richard Moon as BOE's Chief Counsel, effective Monday, August 12, 2024. As you will agree, or already agreed, Mr. Moon is a respected attorney and the foremost legal expert in property taxation who has worked at the BOE since 2005. Throughout his tenure, Mr. Moon has been instrumental to the BOE and the Property Tax Administration for the state of California. Prior to joining the state, Mr. Moon worked in the private sector, concentrating on multi-state income and sales tax issues. He is a graduate of the University of Chicago and Boston University School of Law. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Moon as our Chief Counsel. Mr. Moon, would you like to make some brief remarks?
Good afternoon. Thank you for that introduction. I just want to say briefly, it's been almost 20 years since I've had the incredible blessing and opportunity to be a part of this agency, all in the legal department in various forms. And now I really thank God for this opportunity to serve as Chief Counsel. And I want to express my gratitude to Ms. Stowers, to all of the management. I think one of the big things over the past 20 years that has saved me time and time again, and I've been impressed with, and that I've really loved about the agency is all the people that I've worked with. And I really want that to continue in this new role for me as well. I'm looking forward to working with each of you and the management team in order to serve the people of the state. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. We very much appreciate you taking on that role and your long tenure here as well. So thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Stowers.
God, I was still speaking. Next, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Norm Scott for his service as our acting Chief Counsel. Also, I very much would like to thank his wife and his family for allowing us to benefit from Mr. Scott's wisdom during his semi-retirement years. Mr. Scott, would you like to make some remarks?
Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you. Good afternoon. For the record, Norm Scott, former acting chief counsel, now regular old attorney again, so happy to be that. I wanted to take a few moments today to thank Ms. Stowers for the opportunity to lead the legal department through the transition to Mr. Moon's appointment. I'm very grateful for that. I'm also grateful, as she said, to my wife for indulging me to do that, and she was very supportive. I'd also like to thank Lisa Renati and the entire executive management team for their openness and ability to work with me from day one when I assumed the role. They were right there with me. I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of concerns and all that. They were extremely helpful, and I'm very grateful for that. And then mostly I'd like to thank the men and women of the legal department who continue even now to churn out excellent legal work day after day after day. Made my job in this last few months much easier. I really appreciate that effort and was very glad to get to know each of them better, to know more about the work we do and serving the people, as Mr. Moon said, the California and providing those excellent products. So I appreciate that very much. And I look forward to working with Mr. Moon as he assumes his new role in supporting him in continuing that legacy. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All righty. Next, members, I would like to highlight recent media coverage on disaster relief. As you know, our Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office recently published a new information guide for disaster relief for damaged or destroyed property, and our Property Tax Department continues to update and enhance our disaster relief webpage in order to assist all Californians who have been impacted by recent wildfires. The agency also issued a new release to remind all residents that they may be eligible for property tax relief and to highlight the new information guide. We have received positive coverage in television, radio, and print media. I'm gonna say that one again. We received positive coverage in television, radio, and print media. And a lot of that is due to our communication chief. Thank you, Peter. Wildfires have become common occurrence in this state, and I want to thank the board for its leadership in informing your constituents of the available property tax relief and resources. Thank you. Finally, members, my last item for today is the implementation of the 2024 Budget Act reduction. As discussed in prior board meetings, the 2024 Budget Act solves a $46.8 billion deficit through a mix of solutions. In order to achieve a balanced budget and further promote government efficiencies for fiscal year 2024-25, the budget includes reductions to nearly all state departments' budgets beginning in the current fiscal year. Members, as you know, BOE is currently in the early stage of discussions with the Department of Finance on the implementation of these provisions. I would like to thank the board for your leadership and support as we go through this. And I will continue to keep your offices informed as new information is received. Next, members, this is the follow-up to my earlier email to the board regarding the upcoming California Assessors Association's annual conference. This conference is scheduled for October 7th through the 10th in San Luis Obispo County. If you have not already responded to my email, please do so by Friday, September the 6th to secure your place at this very important conference. Finally, for this item, members, we have our annual meeting with the county assessors next month. It'll be a 2-day meeting. Our regular board meeting will take place on the 24th of September, and our meeting with the assessors will take place on the 25th. If you have any specific topics that you would like to discuss at that meeting, please send them to me by September 9th. I've taken the mental note on the topics you raised, Mr. Vasquez, but I will confer with your team to make sure that we have a clear understanding. That concludes my report for item 6. My executive management team will be providing updates on projects and operational priorities in their respective areas. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions? Anyone? Okay. Mr. Vasquez?
Well, you're going to get into the budget a little bit later, is that what you're saying?
That was going to be my part.
We're
Ms.
going
Renati
over.
is going to do a little bit more, but because we're still negotiating with the Department of Finance, I really don't have much to say in a public forum.
Okay. I can wait.
Thank you. Anybody else with a question for Ms. Towers on this part of the executive officer's reports? Okay, I think that's sufficient for right now. Thank you so much. And I would note that we're going to hold off on taking public comment on item 6 until the end of our agenda with the other executive director's reports, with the exception of item 7, which is an action item. So we'll take the public comment on just that one immediately after. So we'll go ahead and roll into item 7, the board meeting dates and property tax calendars for 2025, also presented by Ms. Towers.
Members, attached to today's agenda is the proposed 2025 calendar of board meeting dates for your consideration and adoption. The 2025 calendar for the State Board of Equalization meeting dates meets all statutory requirements. The proposed meeting dates are evenly spaced and accommodate non-significant dates to allow the public to participate. The proposed plan includes 3 calendars: the 2025 calendar for the State Board of Equalization meeting dates, the 2025 calendar for the valuation of public utilities and railroads, the 2025 calendar for the assessment and collection of private railroad car tax. Additionally, there is a list of state-observed holidays and other significant dates, such as the CAA and other known events, for your consideration. Members, as you know, the proposal includes 16 meeting dates for 2025, 1 meeting date each year, and 4 additional dates reserved for informational hearings and/or board work groups. We're also proposing setting Wednesday as the primary meeting day, with Tuesday scheduled occasionally due to constitutional functions, information hearings, conferences, or state holidays. The draft proposal of the calendar was sent to your office on July 25th from board proceedings, asking for any comments or concerns on the dates. The request for that to get back was September 6th. We did not receive, August 6th, I'm ahead of myself. We did not receive any comments. However, recently, Member Vasquez's office has inquired about the possibility of changing the April 2025 board meeting date from April 16th to April 17th. We have reviewed the calendar, and we can accommodate that by changing the dates to April 29th and April 30th. With that, members, I respectfully request the board's adoption of the proposed 2025 calendar of the meeting dates and ask the board to discuss the requested change of the April 2025 meeting date to April 29th and 30th. Thank you, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Vasquez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it sounds like you're in agreement to move the April 16th, 17th to April 29th and 30th, correct?
Yes.
And then in March, I noticed for the first time, we're actually meeting in the beginning of the month, which has never happened, March 5th, right? And I was wondering if that one could be pushed back, because to me, it looks like you're only giving yourself 2 weeks between the February 19th and the March. I know in the past, it's always been like crunch time, right? And I'm just thinking between ourselves getting briefed and then, of course, staff being prepared and having everything ready and posted, is that sufficient time?
Thank you for that question and being concerned about the workload. I appreciate that. We purposely picked that March 5th date. First of all, yes, it's generally later on in the month, but we purposely picked March 5th because the Caltex annual breakfast with the board is March 6th. So we were picking a date so that you guys only have to fly up once. And then also, there is a conference. I don't have my conference schedule, but is there a conference, is there a CAA conference in March? No, okay, I stand corrected. But we're prepared to get the work done to have the meeting.
Because I think the February is like February the 19th, right? I think it's almost like 2 weeks exactly.
1 second, please.
February 19th.
Yes, it is.
All right,
We're ready. We turned it around before.
all right. It just seems like a bit of a
We do
rush.
this every 30 days. We got it. But thank you very much for your concern.
Not a problem.
Mr. Imran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you, Executive Director Stowers. It's not easy to put together a calendar that extends all of next year. I think the controller and I have some concerns here, just in terms of the consistency of the meetings regularly. I mean, the controller and I both have been participating in the Board of Equalization for about 5-6 years now. We've met usually the fourth Wednesday of the month, or the fourth Tuesday of the month. But when we're looking at this, we have March 5th, February 19th, like Mr. Vasquez was pointing out, February 19th to March 5th, that's a 2-week turnaround. But then the next meeting is not until April 29th, 30th, that's a 7-week gap. So we go from two meetings 2 weeks apart, and then one meeting 7 weeks later. And that's right in the crunch of legislative season too. So it's just something to think about as I look at this. But I think the only other time we have a 4+ week gap is between the December and the January meeting, which I understand is Christmas. But to have a 7-week gap in that time in the March-April season, I think it's just something to think about for now.
Point taken. I appreciate that, sir. The 7-week gap is coming by moving our April meeting to April 29th and 30th. And that was something that we noticed too, that it will provide a gap. But I believe the request, when Member Vasquez's office asked for it, because it was scheduled an earlier time and was right in spring recess for the legislators. So he asked, just in case we have bills, or there are bills that the members would like to take a position on to change the meeting date, and that April 29th, 30th was the only date that was available.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, other questions, as long as we're all making special requests? I know that our January meeting is anticipated to be just one day, and so I had asked if we could possibly do that on January 23rd.
Yes, we could. Currently, the January meeting is scheduled for January 22nd, January 23rd, 2025. It's just the board's choice. And the second day was slated for a possible information hearing. If the board would like, we could change the meeting to only be a one-day meeting on Thursday, January 23rd, to accommodate other needs.
If there would be copacetic with the board, I'd appreciate it, because I think there are several of us who are anticipating travel around that time. So, okay.
Oh, you know what? It just hit me. I was just thinking, God willing, if things turn out in terms of the election, when is the inauguration?
January 20th, 2025.
It's the 20th.
20th. Oh, it's usually around, okay.
So we'll have a little bit of breathing room there. And, okay, well, great. So we've given our input there. Is that enough?
That's fine. Now, I respectfully ask for a motion, please.
Okay, and should the motion contain the changed
Yes, if I may, I
dates?
recommend, a possible motion is to adopt the original staff proposed calendar for 2025, except change the April 2025 meeting date to April 29th, April 30th, and change the January 22nd, 23rd meeting to a one-day meeting on January 23rd.
Okay, great. Is there a motion
So moved.
to approve that? Mr. Vasquez moves. Is there a second on that one?
Second.
Mr. Emron seconds. And we don't have any comment cards from the auditorium, so we'll go to our AT&T operator. Operator, if you could tell us if there's anyone who is on the line who would like to provide input on item 7.
And if you'd like to make a comment, please press 1, then 0. And there are no comments in queue.
Okay, thank you. And so the motion was to approve the calendar of board meetings as put forward by staff with moving the April meeting to the 29th through 30th and the January meeting to be held on January 23rd only. And so, Mr. Getty, if you would please call the roll.
Yes. Chair Lieber,
Aye?
Vice Chair Gaines is absent. Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Member Schaefer,
Aye?
Deputy Controller Emron.
Aye.
Members, that item passes. And we did have it in our schedule to take a 10-minute break now, but maybe we'll wait until we've had a couple other items and then come back to
I
that.
agree.
So we'll go on to item 8.
Okay, me.
Stars.
Item 8, property evaluation related to Proposition 8 and disaster relief. Again, Yvette Stowers, Executive Director. Members at the May 29th board meeting, Member Schaefer raised the issue of providing property tax relief to homeowners under certain circumstances. At the June 25th meeting, Member Vasquez expanded on the discussion and requested a further look at property valuation under special circumstances. As a result, the board instructed the executive director to review current laws that may provide relief, tax relief, and to review the board's guidance on the impact of special circumstances and property values. Today I have with me Mr. Dave Young, Deputy Director for the Property Tax Department, who volunteered for this assignment.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Young.
Good afternoon, Chair Lieber, honorable members of the board. Once again, for the record, my name is David Young, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Property Tax Department. So with your request, what I did was I reviewed the property tax programs that are now available to provide property tax relief for properties that were adversely affected by special circumstances. I looked at our own guidance, our own written literature, what we have on it. And what I did was I actually wrote a memo, and it is actually available to you and everybody in the public. It is attached to the PAN. So let me explain a little bit about the format of the memo, and then I will go over some of the high points of it. So in my review of the programs that are already available for property tax relief, I found that we had extensive guidance. We have lots and lots of writing on it, and we've had writings from as early as 1980. So what I did, instead of trying to make a document that would have basically 100 footnotes in it, I synthesized all our guidance into it and basically shortened it. And attached to that report, I actually included a appendix in the back. The appendix is a complete compendium of all our written guidance on there. We went through, it's all linked. We went through and we made sure that the guidance that is cited is actually available on our website. So when we last checked, they were all there, they were all complete. I'm hoping none of the links were broken in the last day or two. But if they are, we'll do another check and we'll make sure they're all available. So with that, I'll go ahead and start the brief presentation. So we looked at what was available for properties now that have had a negative impact on them because of whatever circumstances. So there are actually 3 programs, and the most basic and fundamental of the provisions is actually the Prop 8. It's a temporary reduction in value for whatever reason. If your property's fair market value drops below what is being assessed right now, is factor-based your value, at the lien date, January 1 of next year, you get a Prop 8. It's a temporary reduction, and it actually reduces the taxable value of your property. So just as a quick example, you just purchased your home for $800,000. The market softens, or for whatever reason, any reason, that value of your home drops below the $800,000, let's say $700,000. As of the next lien date, the next January 1, you actually get a reduction in your assessed value. It's assessed at $700,000. It's the lower of its fair market value or your Prop 13 factor based your value. That provision in law has been around. It's Section 51 in the Revenue and Taxation Code. It's been around since 1980. So very soon after the passage of Prop 13, that provision was put in to recognize that sometimes your fair market value actually drops below what Prop 13 sets as a factor-based value, and it gives you that ability for the assessor to go ahead and lower your assessment. So that's the first program. It's out there. We have lots of writings on it. The second program that's out there is it's the disaster relief. So disaster relief, it's implemented by ordinance by county. Every single county, all 58 counties has adopted that ordinance. So it's available in all 58 counties. So under disaster relief, if something befalls your home, whether it's a governor declared or proclaimed disaster, or you just had a house fire, it's called a calamity if you just have a house fire, you're able to get not only relief on the next lien, that you're able to get immediate relief. So the relief happens that month. And you do not have to have the property value drop below its factored base year value. So if your home is that same home, $800,000 home, the factor base year value is $200,000, but a calamity befalls or a disaster or governor proclaimed disaster happens, and there's $100,000 worth of damage. They can go ahead and basically give you a proportional decrease in your property assessment. So you don't get the full $100,000 off. It's basically 1/8 or 12.5%. They reduce your assessed value by 12.5%. So there is immediate relief if it's a disaster. That is not the only benefit out of disaster relief. There's actually 2 more. If you decide to rebuild your property, you can rebuild for a like-to-like structure, and there will not be new construction. You will not get your property reassessed and have the taxes raised. And if you choose not to do that, there's still one more benefit under disaster relief. You can actually take your base year value and transfer it to a replacement property. So you get under disaster relief, basically immediate lowering of taxes. You get to rebuild and not get your taxes raised, or you can choose to transfer your taxable basis to a replacement property. So that's already available. The relief, the lowering of your value is under R&T Section 170. You get to rebuild and not get reassessed under Section 70 and 70.5. And there's actually 3 provisions in law that allows you to transfer your base year somewhere else: 69, 69.3, and 69.2. too. So there are several ways in which you can do that. And then yes,
Quick question. You know, I'm thinking of some of those homes in Palos Verdes.
yes.
Their property slides off the hill, so they no longer have technically a parcel. And you're saying they could transfer it. What are they transferring at that point?
Well, in that case where there are parcels slid off into the
The hill.
ocean or the hill, wherever it went, I mean, there's a couple of issues there. I mean, the assessment is already been made on that parcel. They can take the land value and whatever improvement value that was on there. And under now Prop 19, you can transfer that base to a similar replacement anywhere in California. So you can do it.
So let's say that happens, they find themselves they find an empty lot somewhere. They build a new home.
Right.
Which technically be new construction. They don't get dinged as a new construction being reassessed, or do they?
No, it's a replacement home. There's some
Even though
limits.
it's in a different parcel?
It's in a different parcel. There's some different limits as to how much you can replace when it goes over. But by and far, it is a tremendous benefit, and you can take your tax base with you.
Okay.
Okay. And so the very last program that I found that that gives you some benefits if something negative happens to your home is if your home becomes contaminated. So under a contaminated property, you don't get the immediate reduction you would in disaster relief. You can get a Prop 8 on it if it does fall below your factor-based year value, but you get the other two benefits that was under disaster relief. You can either remediate your home and not have new construction, or you can, once again, take your tax base, move it to a replacement property. Did I see a hand?
Mr. Schaefer.
Yes.
I notice here on page 2 of Ms. Stowers' 9-page letter to us that to qualify for property tax relief, the owner must file a claim with the assessor with the time specified, and the loss must be at least $10,000.
Correct.
The only problem I have with that is my concern over the neighbors of the sexually deviant predators in San Diego County and elsewhere may not want to come forward and file the claim because this sexually deviant predator may be a loony. He may just read the paper or hear that neighbor Jones has asked for a reduction in their property value because of him. He may feel he is attacking my worth as a human being, and my mother would not appreciate this, and go burn down the guy's house. I don't think we should force a property owner who's seeking a tax release to file a claim with the county assessor and go public. I think the county assessor should stick his or her nose into this situation and just automatically grant a $10,000 or 20% or something relief to all the property owners within a reasonable area, be it a block or 10 blocks or half a mile from the sexier or predative neighbor. And since this is reviewed every so often, annually, that's fine. Adjustments can be made. If the sexually deviant predator goes back to prison or dies or somehow gets entitled to go live in some other community, then the danger would disappear and the assessor would be free to return to market value. I think it's wrong for us to depend on taxpayer release on the taxpayer having to go hand in hand to the assessor and go public. In the case of a crazy neighbor who's a sexually deviant predator and who's been so found by the courts and who has just been in prison until they get out and get forced to be your neighbor, I think it's our duty as assessors to take charge of that situation as anonymously as possible. So hopefully the sexually deviant predator who may be a crazy guy and dangerous, crazy gal, that person will have no clue who may have started it. And the guy that may have started it may be the assessor. And I'd rather the assessor be in danger of being shot by a crazy neighbor than the neighbors having to fear that. Thank you.
Okay, so if I can I put a little earmark on that and come back and perhaps,
Okay.
so note it and I will circle back. So my summary is basically broken up into three parts. And the first part is basically the review of the programs that are available. The second part is a review of some of the guidance that we gave on how to do such valuations. And we actually have a lot of writing on that portion too, on how to do the actual valuations. We have it in our assessor's handbooks. We have it on many of our LTAs. But basically, and it's a well-sorted and well-recognized appraisal principle that if you're looking to basically find a value of something that's been negatively impacted, the most available and probably the most accepted way is to compare it to other comparables that are similarly impacted. So that principle applies to regardless of which approach you take. The preferred approach, if you have the market data, is the sales comparison. If you want to see how your house has been negatively impacted, you look at other houses, perhaps in your neighborhood, that have had the same influences in there, and you see what their sales prices are. That's usually a pretty good indicator, and that's called the sales comparison approach. The income approach, if it's an income property or if the house is a rental, the same principle applies. You would take a look at what fair market rents are within the same neighborhood that suffer the same impact, and you would take basically the present value. You would discount that rent over time and figure out what the income approach would be. So there are a couple of ways of doing it. We do have a lot of writings on it. And so now I will skip to my third part and address your concern a little more directly. And that's the summary part of it. So I actually summarized all three of the programs that I highlighted. The Prop 8 is already in the books. We've actually have tremendous amounts of writing on it, and it's a well-sorted program the assessors are already implementing, and they're really, really good at it. They really are. And if it's a Prop 8 situation and the price and the value of the home actually goes down below the fair market value goes below its factor-based value, many of the assessors are very proactive in it. And they have sophisticated programs, they have staff that monitor individual neighborhoods, they do a lot of work, and they're really, really good at identifying a decrease in any neighborhood, and then they're really good at figuring out, hey, if this neighborhood is suffering a decrease, at what level does it become a Prop 8 for individual homeowners? As you well know, if we both live on the same block and you just moved in and you bought your home for $800,000, I've been there for about 20 years. My home is not assessed at $800,000. It's only assessed at $200,000. A small decrease in the value of the home, you may get a Prop 8, I may not, because it still hasn't fallen below the factor-based value. So that is already available. No change in statute needed. The assessors are very, very proactive. To your point, Board Member Schaefer, assessors are very, very proactive in finding Prop 8s. So they're doing a good job. Even if they don't, you can always ask the assessor for a review, and it doesn't have to be formal. But you can go as formal as assessment appeal. So that's out there. There is an issue with the other two programs I did identify, though. the disaster relief and the contaminated properties, there are some real hurdles to get through in order to use those programs for the very situation that you just brought up. For disaster relief, there is a requirement that there will be actual physical damage to the property. So in your situation that you brought up, physical damage may or may not be there. So without a statutory change to 170 or to any of the statutes that basically administer and allows for disaster relief, it's going to be really, really tough. I don't know how you're going to use disaster relief for that. And the very last one, for the contaminated properties, it is not quite as high a hurdle, but it's virtually almost as high. In order for you to get that relief under the contaminated properties, the property actually has to be declared toxic or hazardous by a state or a federal agency. So there are a couple of things that will, if those are the model of relief you're looking for, immediate relief or the ability to transfer your base year value, then there's gonna have to be some change in statute.
Okay, other questions, Mr. Emron?
Thank you, Mr. Young. Really, really good breakdown, and I thought your memo was very, very nice too, and laid out. And I'm just trying to kind of learn like the Prop 8 angles here,
Yeah.
especially when you talk about the decline in value, disaster relief, contaminated properties. But we're like, as a board, we're talking about things that in the neighborhood that affect, they may or may not affect your property. We talked about crack dens, we talked about blight, hoarding, dog fighting, maybe a house with gang activity, and if there's any recourse for a property owner to live. Like, for example, I was born in Oakland, and there's neighborhoods in East Oakland, for example. You can have the nicest house, all the improvements, but if you live in this high violence corridor, how really can your property value go up? And you're paying just as much taxes, but if you kind of look all around you, there's abandoned homes, there's houses with graffiti on it, there's houses with a lot of gang activity. And what can a property owner do in that situation to provide some type of relief?
Well, right now, as I tried to lay out, right now, the only statutory tool that we have is actually the Prop 8. So it doesn't matter all the circumstances you laid out. If it drops your property value to the fair market value of your property to be lower than its factor base year, that's the only way they can actually lower your assessment for that. So unless there is a willingness to change certain statutes to allow for specific and proportional decreases in your property, it's going to be a real challenge to use the existing statutes.
So in your recommendation, do you believe that there is a space for legislation that helps a property owner who may live in a neighborhood that has high crime, that has high violence, propensity for violence, to make some type of appeal to not be burdened with property taxes if, for example, the police, the government's not helping make it an area that's safe and habitable for residents and children?
It's a little tough for me to make a recommendation on public policy. If the will is there to allow for this type of a reduction and property tax relief, then yeah, you would need some type of enabling statute to grant it.
Thank you.
I had a brief question about the disaster relief side of things. So say that, like in the wildfires that affected Santa Rosa, there were houses that were completely intact,
Yeah.
but all the roads to get to that house were destroyed. And I know that that's been the case with some landslide properties and et cetera.
Right.
So the impact on the property itself might not be included in this, then.
Yeah, so one of the quirks, and some can see it as an injustice and some can see it as a blessing, is that sometimes these wildfires just hopscotch across the whole neighborhoods and impact some devastatingly and some not at all. So with our current understanding and implementation of disaster relief in 170, because the requirement for physical damage is actually in the Constitution, it's pretty hard to make a case that just if your neighbor's house is burnt down and your house is left untouched, that a disaster relief would be warranted. You may be able to get a Prop 8 reduction in that case because of the impact on the greater part of the neighborhood. That neighborhood may actually go into, probably may just be worth less because of the damage. That's separate and aside from the actual physical harm done to a home, or in this case, not done to a home.
Okay, so in the case, I know in San Mateo County right now, there's certain areas where all the access roads have been
Yeah.
taken out by landslides,
Yeah.
and so the group of homes that are,
Right.
accessible,
Yeah.
they're saying it's going to be a couple years
Right.
before people can really
Yeah.
do anything other than have a treacherous hike to their home. So they would be looking under Prop 8.
Probably most likely under Prop 8. And I'm sure the assessor, if they talk to their assessor, and they may be very, very amenable, so.
Okay, to at least see if they can get something temporarily. Okay, great. Other questions for Mr. Young? Well, thank you so much. This is an excellent report
welcome.
and really provided a lot of good background information. I've been thinking since this, came out that this is something that I'd like to get out to my constituents because I don't hear a lot of conversation about what their pathways are under Prop 8. And so this is very, very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Towers, did you want to close out on that one?
Thank you, Dave. Very well done. Thank you, members, for listening to the presentation. As Chair Lieber said, it's really important to really go out and do the education to the taxpayers, the property owners who are most likely impacted by these various items. I have had a conversation with Assessor Nguyen on this, and she agrees that, first of all, the existing rules cover it and they have a clear understanding on how to use them. She did close in a paragraph that she really supports additional education to taxpayers. So I spoke with our taxpayer rights advocate, and as we know, one of her jobs is education to taxpayers. So she is going to do a little bit more conversation with the Education Committee of the California Assessor Association and come develop a plan on our next steps. So you guys can expect some more tools to use to educate your constituents. And that will close my remarks.
Great, thank you so much. We appreciate that. And members, before we go on to item 9, our operational priorities report, we're over time for taking our afternoon break. And so we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break now and reconvene at 3:55-ish. Thank you. 3:56, and we are back from our recess. And our next item is item 9, the operational priorities report presented by Ms. Renati.
Thank you, Chair Lieber and honorable members. I am Lisa Renati, Chief Deputy Director. Today, I'll report on some of the agency's operational priorities and projects. I'm pleased to report that we have successfully filled 6 positions. 5 of these are internal promotions, including our new chief counsel, and we have also hired a new employee within our State Assessed Properties Division. As mentioned earlier by Ms. Stowers, we are currently engaging in ongoing discussions with the Department of Finance regarding the enacted 2024 Budget Act and reductions to state operations. These include potential impacts on our vacancies. We have implemented a temporary hiring pause while we receive more details to allow us to carefully assess our funding for personal services and make informed decisions about which positions to prioritize for recruitment. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the board for its leadership and sacrifices during these challenging times. Your dedication to the agency has been invaluable, and it has not gone unnoticed by the team. Thank you very much. Once we have more definitive information regarding our budget and staffing levels, we will promptly come back and share it with all of you. The next item is our workforce development. As part of our agency's strategic plan, we have outlined key workforce objectives. These include the development and implementation of succession plans for critical roles, as well as fostering a culture of professional growth for the next generation of property tax leaders. Leadership development is a priority at BOE, particularly for our first-line supervisors, who play a crucial role in shaping the experience and success of our employees. So alongside the mandatory training provided by CalHR and in-house training that we have, we're providing additional in-house training sessions on specialized human resource subjects. Over the coming months, we'll provide new courses regarding communications. And those communication skills will be used primarily to improve employee performance, improve communication amongst our teams, and then one-on-one conversations. We're confident that our investment in supervisor development will not only strengthen their leadership capabilities, but also improve overall employee engagement and satisfaction. This, in turn, will help us make significant progress in revitalizing our workforce for the future. Thank you, members. This concludes my comments. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Renati? Mr. Vasquez?
I had a couple of questions, but it sounds like we're still up in the air on some of these issues in terms of vacancies and what we're going to do. So I'll kind of hold off. But the only thing that I just want to put out there, and I don't know if you have a definition, or maybe Ms. Stowers does. What is the definition we're using of a vacant position? Is it a vacant position is a vacant position considered somebody that is vacant just recently? Or is a vacant position a vacancy where we've had a vacancy in a position over a longer period of time, like a year or two?
So all of the vacant positions effective June of 2024 are that were reported from State Controller's Office to the Department of Finance, and those are any position not filled by a full-time employee. So those are the vacant positions that are being reviewed. And for the 2024-25 year, we will lose the positions that are reduced, we'll lose the funding for, and then from there forward, we'll lose both position authority and funding.
And following that line, which you just explained to me, for example, if there's a vacancy and you advertised for that vacancy and you're in the process of recruiting and it made an offer, is that still considered a vacancy, I guess?
It's still considered a vacancy until we have the person start on their first day.
Okay.
So that's why we've filled positions. Most of them have been promotions. We try to fill them as soon as possible. And once the person starts, that's the day they're in the position, those positions are safe from this current reduction.
So I'll wait. I guess next month we'll have some better understanding where we're at on that, I'm assuming.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll go to item 10, our Taxpayer Rights Advocates Office report by Ms. Thompson.
Hello, Chair Lieber and honorable board members. For the record, I'm Lisa Thompson, the Chief of the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office. I am pleased to provide you with some statistics on the number of completed cases completed by the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office last month and update on taxpayer education. We completed 42 cases last month. 8 were in Chair Vasquez's district, District 1. 17 were in Chair Lieber's district, District 2. 9 were in Board Member Vasquez's district, District 3, and 8 were in Board Member Schaefer's district, District 4. 13 were from the administrative category and 29 from the valuation category. Executive Director Stowers already commented about a recently released publication, new taxpayer education resource that was prepared by the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office, an information guide for disaster relief for damaged or destroyed property, publication 802. The information guide is intended to help taxpayers understand different types of property tax relief that is available if their property is unfortunately damaged or destroyed from a natural disaster such as a wildfire, flooding, or earthquake, or also which was damaged or destroyed by an individual calamity or misfortune such as an electrical fire. The information guide outlines what qualifies for disaster relief under Revenue and Taxation Code Section 170, how property taxes are adjusted to grant relief for the damaged or destroyed property, and how and when to apply for it. It provides information on available relief once the property is rebuilt or if the owner decides to move and purchase another property. Basically, it packages the various types of disaster relief into a straightforward publication with, in simple terms for taxpayers. It directs taxpayers to pertinent statutory provisions as well as LTA guidance published by our agencies. A letter to assessors was issued last week announcing the publication so county assessors and other interested parties were aware of it. And our communications officer issued a news release and posted on various social media accounts. I would like to thank my team for all of their hard work in preparing this important resource that will help taxpayers across the state. I'd also like to thank the board for their continued leadership for always putting taxpayer education first at the forefront. I am confident this new tool will help taxpayers in California, and it will help the board assist those taxpayers who need this critical information. I always appreciate the board's collaboration in providing this information to those in need by informing taxpayers of resources available by the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office. We hope this will be an additional resource that your offices can share with the public and throughout your equalization districts and for those impacted by disaster. The guide is available on our website, and I have provided each of you copies of that. So if you have any questions, I am available.
Okay, great. Any questions? Mr. Vasquez?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Thompson, for this excellent report and this publication. I'm looking at it, kind of flipping through it right now. Especially thank you and your team for this guide, especially as we're looking at these disasters that continue to happen. Not only, as I'm looking at some of these with water damage, but then, these fires, and we're constantly hearing about fires up and down the state here. So I really appreciate the work you've done and your team has done on this. And I notice on the website, it's pretty user-friendly for those that are trying to navigate it and figure out what they do and they don't qualify for, and what guidance they possibly can have. I'm also pleased to note that the guide, not only what you're handing out here, but like I'd mentioned in the actual website and then in some of the informational packets that we've handed out, we've got nothing but really good compliments for them as we are getting these out to folks. So just kudos to you and your team for this production. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions or comments? Mr. Schaefer?
Yes, I just wanted to thank the staff for a very fine hearing today. I enjoyed participating in it. I have that ongoing comment that I have this ongoing comment that I would hope that we could bring the annual report closer to the current day by covering all of 2023 instead of just the first half of it, and I'm sure you're aware of that. Also want to say I enjoyed having a written copy of the comments of so many of the speakers. In fact, all of the speakers. I have not run into that before. I don't know whether that's only because of the nature of today's hearing, but I would like you to know that whenever we do have a written statement, I enjoy having a copy of it. Sometimes they have the email address and other information. I might want to send somebody a copy and thank them for their input or whatnot. So I want you to know that that was a big plus at today's hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments from Ms. Thompson? If not, thank you so much, and thank you for the copies of the report that we can provide to constituents. In our district especially, there's no amount of content that is too much for people to consume, and so this is super helpful. Thank you. Okay, we'll go on now to item 11, the Property Tax Deputy Director's Report, presented by Mr. Young.
Thank you, Chair Lieber, honorable members of the board again. Once again, I'm David Young, Deputy Director of the Property Tax Department. With me today, I have my two chiefs. Ms. Lauren Keach will present the first of two reports for you. They are the letters to assessors and appraisal training and certification. And then Mr. Jack McCool, Chief of the State Assessed Properties Division, will give you a update on what's going on in that division. So if you're ready, I will have Ms. Keach start with the first two.
Please.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Lauren Keach, Chief of the County Assessed Properties Division. I will be providing a brief report on letters to assessors. For calendar year 2024 to date, the BOE staff has issued a total of 27 LTAs. And since our last board meeting, the following 3 LTAs have been issued. An annual LTA on court cases involving property tax issues decided in 2023 by California's Courts of Appeal. An LTA to announce a project to amend Property Tax Rule 135, homeowners' property tax exemption to conform the rule to a statutory change in record retention requirement. August 16th was the deadline for the interested parties to submit comments, and we did not receive any comments. The third is an LTA to issue the Solano County Assessment Sampling Survey, and these are included in the memo attached to the PAN and also available on the BOE's website. And this concludes my reports on letters to assessors. I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Keach, for your presentation. I really appreciate the LTA. I guess it was number 2024 / here 025, summarizing the 2023 litigation. It's important for assessors and taxpayers to be informed on these cases. I just have a couple questions. One of them as it pertains to the cases, I guess it's the Paramount Pictures versus Los Angeles. The Court of Appeals held that in the valuing of a Paramount's personal property and fixtures, the AABs could reject using the income approach and use the cost approach instead in order to determine the reduction needed for obsolescence. Is that correct? I guess obsolescence. And the court held that this was consistent with the rules. How do we typically advise assessors to determine the obsolescence of personal property and fixtures in handbooks or LTAs, I guess is the question.
Thank you for your question.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Obsolescence is one of those topics that is really, really hard to get a good firm handle on. As you've already noted earlier today, there was guidance. There was desire for more concise guidance on not obsolescence, but on intangibles. But obsolescence and intangibles, they're both really tough things to quantify. For obsolescence, we actually do have 2 written guidelines on how to basically quantify obsolescence. One of them is specific for state assessed properties, and the other one is more broad, and it addresses basically everything else other than state assessed properties. For obsolescence, there are a couple of things that we did put in there. We used to do certain studies to figure out the useful life of personality, and that, in essence, kind of quantifies it in a gross term. In a very specific term, we have one of the main tools to figure out what obsolescence is basically an inutility study. So there are some guidelines there that talks about inutility studies as to how to perform and kind of what they measure. So we have some writing in it. There are guidelines. There's some obsolescence addressed in some of our handbooks, and and to recognize obsolescence is a huge area that many economics and appraisal texts will address. The Appraisal Institute has some really good handbooks on quantifying obsolescence.
So I'm assuming a lot of it has to do with how they would amortize, for example, a piece of equipment. And that's, like you said, it's a very gray area, because for you, you may price it at or evaluate it at a much higher price or rate than some of the owners might, right?
Yeah, and that's part of the challenge. Obsolescence it's really, really difficult to come up with a truly precise quantified number. It's how you use it. Obsolescence technically is a loss in value for any reason. Right. So it could be obsolescence from physical, it's worn out, the design is not current, or the market just changed.
It's obsolete, basically.
It's obsolete, basically. So it's really, really, it's a real tough area to give you a precise number on.
Okay. And I guess the other one is on the general note regarding the 2023 litigation. When the BOE conducts assessment surveys, do we look into those cases where assessors was possibly in error, and when courts disagree with the county's methods on these things, on these particular cases?
Yeah, do we look at them in specific? The answer is probably not. We usually do not review assessment appeals cases. For an assessment appeal, once a property's value has been equalized, we're unable to change it. Actually, short of judicial review, you're unable to change it. The assessor can't do it. So what we normally look at, if we look at something like that, we try to see if there's an issue with methodology rather than actual application. Did they get this number right for assessment appeals?
Okay. I think we're good, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
That's
there. I
okay.
know
No, thank you,
had backup
Mr. Young,
there.
for coming in.
Those were very good and mysterious sounding topics.
Yes.
I started to feel sad a little bit about loss of recognizable utility in something. Ms. Keach.
So then if there are no other questions, I'll go on to my next report on the BOE's appraisal training and certification program. For the 2024-25 fiscal year, BOE staff has scheduled 31 classes and 2 workshops. Staff is also working to schedule additional classes using instructors from the county assessor's offices, and there are currently 8 scheduled. Since the beginning of the fiscal year, the BOE has taught 5 classes, and we continue to offer existing online basic appraisal training courses available through American River College and California State University, Sacramento, as well as online courses and self-study training sessions that are available on the BOE's website. This concludes my report on training and certification. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Emron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Vasquez, too. I just had one question. I know we were talking about it a little bit in our briefing. I want to talk about it in a public forum as well. Just the wait list. I know there's quite a bit of a wait list, and how can somebody that wants training get off? What's the process to get off the wait list?
So there is more of a wait list for the higher demand classes, which are some of the core classes as the counties are bringing in staff and trying to get them trained and up to speed. So we have seen a wait list on those. We are currently working on solutions, how can we add more classes or expand our existing classes? So it is something that we are aware of and are proactively looking for solutions. So we're hoping to see the wait lists come down. If people drop, they're immediately added to classes, or if we switch from in-person to virtual, then that expands, the student capabilities. So those are some of the options and solutions that we're looking into.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Mr. Vasquez.
I know you was going to take one of my questions, but I have another one for you.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I think it was good, that you're giving us this feedback, but I was wondering on the number of online classes that are offered and taught. Are you able to tell us if we've increased the use, these resources, and how we're reaching these participants that are involved with it?
I'm not sure I understand you increase the use of the classes or the number of classes.
One, the classes, and then the participants. They're actually participating in the classes. Are we showing a growth here?
Yes, we have regular conversations with the training coordinators, so they communicate the number of students. Each year we have a survey, so we have an idea of the number of students they would have and the classes that they would need. That helps us better prepare our schedules for the fiscal year. There has been a recent increase. I think the counties have been bringing on newer staff that has been made aware to us, which is part of the reason for some of the wait lists for the more of the core classes. So again, that's why we're proactively looking for solutions to either increase the student capacity or extend the number of those classes that we're able to offer.
And along those lines, and so because I know looks like we have some instructors that have been with us for some period of time now that are running these classes. Are you seeing a need to possibly increase that pool of instructors?
We are actively looking for instructors with county assessors' offices. Our training unit is fully staffed and up and running, so it would be bringing in more instructors from the assessors' offices, which we are currently reaching out and looking into that as part of expanding the number of classes as part of that solution.
Because are we pretty much at capacity?
Our unit is fully staffed, yes. The training and certification unit is fully staffed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you so much, Ms. Keach. We appreciate it. And we'll welcome up Mr. McCool for the state assessed property report.
Thank you. Good afternoon again, Chair Lieber and honorable members. My name is Jack McCool, Chief of the State Assessed Properties Division. Today I will provide information on the status of ongoing work in our division. SAPD continues to work on our property tax audits. Initial audit letters for this year's audits were sent in early June. Staff have been traveling to assess the locations and conducting in-person audits and site tours. Most travel has now been completed, and our auditor appraisers are busy analyzing the data they compiled. We anticipate final audit reports that recommend value changes likely coming to the board towards the ends of 2024 and the first part of 2025. SAPD staff also continue to work diligently on state assessed appeals. Staff will continue to work on written responses to the petitions that have been filed, and will also be preparing for the first round of appeals conferences, which will begin in early October. We will continue to work with petitioners and attempt to resolve as many issues as possible. That concludes my report. I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much for the report. Thank you. And Mr. Young, did you want to close us out on this item, or it's all good? Okay, well, thank you so much to the whole team for your work on this. And we will go on now to item 12, our Legislative Research and Statistics Division Chief's Report by Mr. Angelo.
Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and members, honorable members. Ted Angelo with the Legislative and Research and Statistics Division. As we've noted before and throughout the past weeks, every week I send you an update with the status of where the legislation that we're typically following, where it stands. And so last week was the last day to amend bills on the floor. They're in floor session right now. The fiscal committees are mostly done except for bills being referred off the floor with gut and amend language and things like that, which we've been reviewing to make sure there's no problematic language that would impact the board. And so far, everything seems to be pretty innocuous, and we haven't seen any trouble. And we weren't expecting any, and I usually hear from the consultants of the Rev and Tax Committees if there is something controversial coming up. So we'll keep you apprised as this week moves forward. The deadline is the 31st for the end of the two-year session. So hopefully they don't meet on Saturday and go super late like every session, but they may. The good news is our two sponsored proposals, 1527 for the low value exemption ordinance sunset date extension has moved. They're both on the floor, and unless something happened today and I was unaware of it, they're moving towards the governor. There's no opposition. SB 1528 is the second bill with CDTFA language and our cleanup provisions that I've detailed in the past couple of hearings, so I won't go through it today. So those are on the floor and should be moving to the governor soon. Again, I sent updates on Friday, but we talked about at length today the e-signature bill 1879 is on its way to the governor. It expands the ability for the consumer and for assessors to accept electronic signatures through the verified formats. It may not do everything that some of the groups were talking about earlier, but it's a significant step forward for e-commerce that has been, the goal of UADA and others has been to be doing this 20 years ago. So wet signatures are still among us, and this is a good step in the right direction to kind of modernize with the consumer protections in place. That bill has been enrolled and it's to the governor for signature. AB 1868 Friedman on assessments for affordable housing is on the floor. The FTB membership bill, AB 2238, which has been followed and closely. The bill was amended earlier in the session, as you know, to protect the board chair as part of the FTB board. That bill adds the treasurer and the lieutenant governor. I haven't heard much in terms of politicking, in terms of whether the governor intends to sign that or not, but it's passing. It has been passed to the governor for his consideration. So AB 2353 Ward for the delinquencies on the welfare exemptions bill, that is on third reading. So that's on the floor and should be headed to the governor, as there was, well, that one's a little fiscally has some issues, but I believe the assessors had worked out some of their concerns with that bill, so I don't think there's any opposition. AB 2897, Connolly, on the welfare exemption for CLTs. I went over that one in detail and what it does, and it's on third reading as well. The rest I'm not going to go over today. Those were the key bills. A little bit from listening to today's discussions on other subjects, we know that veterans issues have come up in the past session and didn't make it out of committee because of fiscal reasons. So we know those things will be coming back for those that have an interest in legislation that would help veterans benefits for tax purposes. And also on the assessors meeting up in Northern California, when I was hearing about Mr. Vasquez talking about the LTA process and what could be improved upon. In my time here at BOE, everything I've seen in the review process is very thorough in terms of what the LTAs that go to the assessors contain, whether it's a legislative update about what the statutes that I was just analyzing do, or just an update for an existing process that's required to do periodically. I think they're very thorough and are very helpful guidance. And so I once again tip my cap to Mr. Young and his team for what they put together, as well as the executive board. So with that, I'm going to keep it brief. It's been a long day. And if you have any questions on any specific bills, I can touch on them now.
Okay, Mr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Angelo. I have an interest in a taxpayer's item in Orange County, which is in my District 4. It doesn't directly relate to the business of our board, but I feel I have a greater obligation to protect the taxpayers of District 4, where I was elected. It's the issue is the abuse of the public money that supervisors have been given to some charities that spend the money foolishly. I'd like to talk to an assemblyman about maybe putting an end to the grant of such money. My natural inclination is to contact my assemblyman in San Diego where I live. But I'm not getting any response. Maybe I should contact an assembly person in Orange County where the problem is. I'm a little confused as to which assemblyman or senator is going to answer my mail. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I can't really opine on it because it's kind of a legal issue that I'm not too familiar with, but it sounds like a local control issue. If you're talking about Board of Supervisors.
I'm talking about Orange County issue involving substantial taxpayer funds. And I'm just wondering, I'd like to write to a
going to charities.
I'm looking for a state law, so I should write to a state legislator.
Unless the governance of those funds is happening at the local level, and then it's a local issue, unless it somehow involves FPPC governance.
I'm asking the state of California to prohibit counties from allowing elected officials to give out substantial bequests.
Excuse me, Mr. Schaefer, we've got Mr. Moon approaching.
Hi, Richard Moon, Chief Counsel. Mr. Schaefer, thank you for those questions. Because it doesn't have a direct link to what the board does, the board's authority and jurisdiction, I think if those are questions that you have generally about who to contact or who might, listen to some of the issues that you want to bring up, maybe that's something that you can talk with the executive director and the legislative director offline
Sure.
at a later time.
That's a good answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Emron?
That's what I meant to say, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Angelo. Really, really appreciate your presentation, all the good work you've done. I think you've been here about a year now?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been nice. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and now we're almost at the end of this session, and then we'll kick back off in January. Anything in the pipeline for us to look out for in January in terms of BOE-sponsored bills or something BOE should be focusing and honing in on? I know we got electronic signatures in there, and you got your bills passed this year, but you don't have to answer now. I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Nothing jumps out, but after next month's meeting with the assessors, I think we'll hear more ideas about issues that they may have, and then we'll start hearing things ruminating from the legislature for the new 2-year session, depending on how budget things are going. And if there's an appetite for certain things that may not be workable this year because of the budget deficit.
yeah,
In general.
those things. But I really do appreciate some BOE-sponsored bills too. I think that relationship's very, very important, and they're seeing us really stepping up in the property tax space. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Angelo, you might have touched on it, but I don't think I heard it clearly. On Gibson's bill, the electronic signatures filing, I noticed the agent authorization form did not make it onto the bill. Do you know what happened with that?
Agent authorization form? That one I wasn't even aware
Oh,
of.
I'm sorry, I thought you.
No,
okay.
I didn't have communications with
I didn't want
them.
to stump you, but I just wanted to.
No, because that wasn't even a debate in the policy committee.
Okay.
So if it happened, it was behind the scenes and I was left out
Yeah, it
of
got
that.
dropped, and I was just wondering if you
Okay.
knew what
I
happened.
don't know if David.
Okay, Mr. Young.
Good afternoon again. You are absolutely correct. That made it into proposed language, but it did not make it into the actual amendments. So perhaps there will be another run at it, and perhaps we may be able to do something else, but you're right, it did not make it.
And we don't know, obviously, nobody knows for what reasons, I guess, at this point.
Yes.
Thank you. And the other one I had is on AB 2353 with the Ward bill, which is the welfare exemption delinquencies. The assessors were opposed for quite a while because the bill would significantly increase their workload by requiring them to track exemption claims on low-income housing and provide updates to the county auditor and tax collector. What was the amended language? Do we know what the amended language was on that?
I don't have it with me today, but I don't believe I think there was language in the bill.
That changed their mind. Something happened there.
Right.
I didn't know what it was. So.
I'll look into that.
Appreciate it.
Because, let me see. I just want to check the last amended date. So it was amended on the 21st, but I could have sworn it was just chaptering out language and that it wasn't substantive, because if it was, it probably would have been referred back to policy committee.
Okay.
And it wasn't. So I don't think there was much of a change from its prior content, but I do believe they had kind of resolved some of their major concerns and weren't strongly opposed, because there was no opposed letter in the Senate floor analysis.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, super. Any other questions? Thank you so much, Mr. Angelo. Good
Thank
luck
you.
for the time period between now and the 31st.
Yes. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yes, absolutely. And members, we're going to take public comment now on all of the.
Ms. Licker, I
Madam Chair?
apologize.
Excuse me.
Yeah, in the last few minutes here, we've been having some issues with the AT&T line coming through. And so we're trying to see if we could correct it.
Maybe we could call out and see if AT&T responds.
Yes, yeah. Let's see if they'll respond to you. Yeah, looks like we're having a little bit of issues. So just to let you know, we might have some problems. So.
Okay. And Mr. Emron, was it on this one, on number the public comment on the executive director's reports?
Well, Madam Chair, I'll ask you, if there's items that I want to agendize in the future, is this now the time to ask for it?
Generally speaking, you may place an item on an agenda by sending an email. We will be sending out a draft agenda in soon, and that's when you can do it, or you can send me an email and Ms. Tucker an email with your agenda items. We will place them under most likely a board matter.
Can I put it on the record now? I mean, it doesn't have to be yes or no. Can I put it on the record now, just so I can gauge my colleagues here, and then we can proceed with that?
You can put it on the record now, but the members won't be able to take action.
Okay, that's fine.
And maybe we could take that as your closing comments, if that works, under that item. And we'll check if the AT&T line is working now, and it may not be working, so we may get to closing comments right away. So we do not have any written comments or anyone in the auditorium who wished to make a public comment for the executive director's reports, items 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we'll try our AT&T moderator. Moderator, would you please let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding these items?
Ladies and gentlemen over the phone, if you wish to make a comment on one of these items, please press 1 then 0 at this time. Madam Chair, there's no one queuing up at this time.
Okay, thank you. We'll go on to item 13, public comment on matters that are not on the agenda. Persons who wish to address the Board of Equalization regarding items not on the agenda may do so under this item. Please note that the board cannot act on items not on the agenda. However, the board can schedule issues raised by the public for consideration at future meetings. When giving your public comment, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. We haven't received any written public comments on this or any comment cards from the auditorium, so we'll go back to the AT&T moderator. Moderator, would you let us know if there's anyone who would like to make comments under item 13?
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, if you wish to make a comment on item 13, please press 1, then 0 at this time. And Madam Chair, there's still no one queuing up at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. We will go on to our next item, which is the closing remarks in our adjournment, and Mr. Emron will take your closing comments first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank all my colleagues. I want to thank the TRA office, the executive director. Congratulations to Richard Moon as well on your appointment. I think it's a great way to close out the summer. We're approaching Labor Day, and I want to shout out all the laborers who make this country run. So really quickly, Madam Chair, I wanted to really look at 2 items upcoming. One of them is called the PACE. It's Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. So it's qualifying homeowners can get financing through the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. And in this program, you can finance your solar panel installation and pay back the loan with your property taxes. Essentially, we understand solar panels cost $30,000, $40,000. This is a way to finance it, and you pay it back through your property taxes. So if we can get some information on that so we can spread it out to the constituents. The program does come with some caveats. You'll have an increased assessment on your annual property tax bills, and the lien is placed on your home until it's paid off, which may or may not make it hard to sell your home. But California has 10 active programs, public and private partnership, and nationwide, 200,000 homeowners have $5 billion in energy efficiency programs through this PACE financing. And I think it's something that this board should look into as well. And then secondly, I had a sidebar conversation with some members of the Department of Education, and they just released a plan about 75,000 acres of school land, underused and underutilized school land to build housing, which is going to be prioritized for teachers, custodians, and secretaries. And I know as Member Vasquez, it's something that you brought up time and time again, unused land, underutilized land on public land that you can build housing on. And they just rolled out this very, very comprehensive plan earlier this month for 75,000 acres to be built on. And I'll love a presentation from the Department of Education. There are partners in this, just to kind of see how we can help strategize in this pursuit of 2.5 million homes by 2030. Thank you, Madam Chair, and hope everyone has a great holiday weekend.
Thank you so much. Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to adjourn this board meeting in memory of Richard Alatorre, a political powerhouse in Sacramento and Los Angeles during a 28-year career. He died after a long battle with cancer on August the 13th at the age of 81. Alatorre began his California Assembly career as an aide to Assemblymember Walter Caribbean, and in 1972, he was elected to the California State Assembly and served for 12 years in various capacities, including the chairman of the Select Committee on Farm Labor Violence, Human Services Committee, Elections and Reapportionment Committee, and the Prison Reform Committee. In 1973, he was a founding member and chair of then the Chicano Caucus, now known as the California Latino Legislative Caucus. He also helped shape the state's farm labor law as principal author of the California Agricultural Labor Relations Act in 1975, which gave migrant workers collective bargaining rights in the state, a first in the U.S. history. Alatorre served on the Los Angeles City Council, District 14, from 1985 to 1999. He served as the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, Public Safety Committee and Redistricting Committee, and served as an assistant pro temp from 1993 to 1995. He was the first Latino in more than 2 decades to be elected to the council, the previous one being Ed Roybal, who left in 1962. He was a strong ally of Mayor Tom Bradley and was aligned with many of the group's economic powerhouses in Los Angeles. He obtained state enterprise zones tax incentives for the East Los Angeles community. Raised in East Los Angeles, Arthur attended and graduated from Garfield High School, where he was a student body president. He went on to earn his bachelor's degree in sociology at Cal State LA, and then later his master's from the University of Southern California. After college, he taught sociology at the Cal State LA University in California, also in Irvine, and night courses in government and federal prison, Terminal Island. Among his many other accomplishments and contributions, Rich Arthur was also a community organizer and served as the Western Regional Director for the NAACP Legal Defense Education Fund, where he successfully initiated lawsuits on behalf of children, many of whom had been assigned to classes for mentally disabled because they were only speaking in Spanish. And he also served as a consultant to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission. He is survived by his wife, Angie, his daughter, Melinda, 2 sons from a previous marriage, Derek and Daryl, and 4 granddaughters. Yesterday, we had the opportunity to actually, on the assembly floor, to recognize them as well, and they had a resolution with many of the current members and past members from both the Assembly and the Senate present. So I want to adjourn under his memory. And for those that might be in LA, they're actually having the funeral services in Los Angeles on September 9th, which is a Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could please convey our condolences to the family and the community. I think Senator Alatorre really showed what it is to be a Californian in every possible sense, and has made a permanent mark on our state and our history. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer.
I just want to reiterate my memorial comment earlier about Alexander Rodish, who was an equipment operator, lost his life on July 22nd, I believe, in San Juan Campus in San Clemente area, leaving 2 adult kids and a brother and a sister. He was one of 193 men and women who lost their lives working for Caltrans in the last 103 years. And I can tell you, I suspect the California Highway Patrol has even a higher fatality rate. I'm sure that the California firefighters have a high rate too, because they're always out there protecting our mountain fires, of which we've had plenty. I imagine we've lost lifeguards in service. There's an awful lot of people who give their last measure of devotion to the people of California, and I just want to salute all of them now that we have the fine gentleman from Orange County to recognize and appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I hope that you can convey our condolences to the Rodish family.
Yes, I sent a letter to the family.
Thank you so much. Well, members, we've come to our time to adjourn, and we were targeting 4:55, and we're at 4:45, so you've all done very well today. And we're going to adjourn the board meeting at 4:46. Our next scheduled board meeting is Tuesday and Wednesday, September 24th through 25th, 2024, at 10 a.m. here at the Maile State Office Complex in Sacramento. Thank you.